This is big news. New pacifista, old princess, same unknown traitor, and one hell of an arc climax incoming. How is it even possible that Egghead Island is this good? This is legitimately starting to feel less like a fun mini arc and more like a full-scale war. And speaking of war, chapter 1074 officially marks 500 chapters since the death of Ace. Don't know why I felt the need to point that out, but I did, so chuck an F or whatever letter it is you want in the chat and let's move on. One of the big revelations we have in 1074 are the new Mark III pacifista models, which means that Vegapunk is now adopting the naming scheme of Canon cameras. I really like the design of these guys, although I have to admit that all of the various Kumas or Kumai, they're all starting to blur into one in my head. There are just so many different variants that I legitimately had a moment last week where I was like, did I imagine the policeman Kuma? Was that just a fever dream? But the Mark III pacifista have a brand new weapon, or more accurately, a new defense, a defense bubble shield, which is very cool, and it immediately made me think of Sambadi. I think for some people, they went to Caliph's Devil Fruit, which makes bubbles, to be the inspiration for this, but I feel like it's a lot simpler. Back during the original Sambadi arc, Oda went to great lengths to explain the fictional science behind how these bubbles are naturally constructed. And this panel in particular from chapter 496 has been cited by Oda himself as his second favorite panel in the entire series. I repeat, the entire series. And we don't particularly know why this is. But what we do know is that Oda has always kept bubbles in mind. He's a big fan of bubbles. And in a way, what the new pacifista are creating really is just a more advanced and on-demand version. It's also quite similar to coding a ship in order to travel down to Fishman Island, which given the extreme water pressure would need to be pretty damn strong bubbles. Even if it's unintentional though, I do like the callback to Sambadi. In fact, a lot of this arc so far has been filled with Sambadi callbacks, and the arc itself could even be a bit of a 2.0. But we have a massive 50 Mark III units, which, that's a lot, and I'm wondering if they follow the same command hierarchy as the Seraphim do. As in Sentomara released them, but if Vegapunk could take priority, and then the Elder Stars could assume absolute authority. Because if so, then releasing these guys could do much more harm than it does good. Basically handing Saint Saturn a whole army of Kumamamums in addition to the Seraphim. To be fair to Sentomara though, you would never anticipate one of the Elders actually leaving the retirement home. But this is the overwhelming factor I've been waiting for. Egghead Island up until this point has been a fairly individual affair, a gaggle of straw hats versus an assortment of zoo creatures, but this is rapidly escalating into a potentially massive battle. This chapter also serves as a very standard beat in most One Piece arcs, which is the story collation, that part where all of the separate groups come together and form a plan to really kick the rest of the arc right in the sabos. Although it's happening at quite a rapid pace here. A lot of arcs do begin with the Straw Hats splitting up and having all sorts of fun, wacky adventures, meeting the people, seeing the sights. That's the adventure part of the arc. Then with all of the information they find, they have this moment of coming together to form a game plan. That's what's happening here right now. And then they usually split up again to implement said plan, which generally takes us to the end of the arc. Before we get there though, at long last, we have some much needed drip for the rest of our crew, and it's hard not to focus on Zoro first, because he has, in my opinion, easily the best Egghead Island outfit, because holy crap does he look like the main character all of a sudden. And I love the touch of placing the swords on his back as opposed to his side, makes him look all kind of cool, sleek and assassin-y. Brook is also not to be neglected though. I love his outfit because Brook has this amazing ability to be a bit of a fashion chameleon. Due to the fact that he's a literal skeleton, there is no such thing as an outfit too wacky for Brook. So he wears everything to perfection, be it a gentlemanly suit, a rock style getup, or in this case, a space skeleton. We also have a new outfit that I did not expect, which was Stussy. She looks great, but I can't help but think that a future version of Kinemon was in charge of the Egghead Island fashion, decreeing that all men shall be covered from head to toe in sleek black suits, whilst all women shall be devoid of pants entirely, which is a bit inconvenient because look, just where is Stussy going to hide that sea stone lipstick now, huh? You might think that there are certain organic options, but she's a Devil Fruit user, so you can't do that. But more so than anything, this is what makes me feel like Egghead still has a fair chunk to go. For a while, it felt like it was going to end very soon, but if we're giving the rest of the crew new outfits, then yeah, we need some time to use them. Well, not use, I guess you don't really use outfits. To show them off, to do the fighting while it's looking cool, which is not what that is. My favorite panel of the chapter is this glorious mess that a lot of people are probably going to complain about being cluttered. Rah, 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 Oda paneling too busy, rah, rah. You know how they do. Funnily enough, they don't actually finish their sentences because extra words makes them too cluttered. But this panel is a goldmine of character interactions. I love Nami kicking Lucci while Robin is standing there trying to calm her down, like, no, you don't have to do it. Stop kicking the unconscious leopard man. It's a really sweet moment because you get to see how much Nami cares for Robin, and simultaneously how mature Robin is by trying to stop her, despite Robin being the one who by all rights should be doing the kicking. Then I also really enjoy this interaction with Usopp and Shaka. And I know that Usopp is looking at the monitor, but to me it just looks like he's staring straight at Shaka's butt. And very intensely as well. Like there's a lot of detail to take in on that there butt. He's got his glasses on and everything. It's just like, just calm down, mate, calm down. Sanji is also simping in the background over York, finally. And she is huge! I think this is the first chapter to properly depict the scale of York, because I definitely thought she was much more regular sized. And I think this will trigger a certain portion of humanity. You know, the same sort of people who were awakened by Lady D from Resident Evil. You know the ones. Seeing Luffy and Zoro just chilling with Lucci and Kaku on the floor is a close second favorite panel though, because seeing these two enemies who I once thought were overwhelming being casually dismissed like this is fantastic, although I don't quite trust that they're still unconscious. There's something about Kaku's face in particular that makes me feel real suspicious about that giraffe man. And I wonder if Lucci and Kaku are going to continue to be involved in this adventure, like if they're somehow forced to escape with everyone and into this smoker style arrangement of working with the Straw Hats. It's hard to say because again, it looks like we've only actually just reached the midpoint of the arc, and I definitely don't think they'll be out of action for the rest of Egghead. There's still something, I don't know what it is, but there's something left to happen with both of them. Also, fun note, Luffy's shoes are flagged as being broken in this chapter, which is almost certainly going to be very, very relevant in the future. Like say a situation where a certain traitor reveals themselves and does something dastardly like locking down everyone's shoes. But luckily, because Luffy's got broken, I'm free and I can defend against the bad person. Something like that. But yes, there is still a traitor to be found as we are now locked in the upper area, which makes the whole escape thing a bit difficult. But also, we may very well have just experienced a character death. Pythagoras got caught up in a bit of a big boom, although of all of the things I don't trust in One Piece, explosions are the least trustworthy of all of the death methods. I mean, Pythagoras is a robot, I suppose, so that might make Oda more willing to actually kill him. It's just that One Piece thing though, you can never trust events like this at face value. Although part of me is starting to wonder if what we're going to see from here on out are the satellites being taken down one by one, very Among Us style, which is only helped by the fact that we've all decided to split up again. Group meeting is over, so it's time to give our traitor their opportunity. The way this chapter paints events would imply that Lilith is the one who offed Pythagoras, because she, Pythagoras, and Stella are the only punks not present in the big cluttered group shot. But also, we don't know when this happened. Pythagoras was exploded after everyone split up, so it could still be anyone. And one of those anyone that we've ignored for quite a while is Caribou, because he would be quite the ideal natural traitor. However, I find it very difficult to believe that he would be able to access and use all of the Vega tech around the island. He would need to be guided by someone, which means that even if it was him, he would not be the true mastermind. But it is interesting that he's been completely MIA for a very, very long time. Although he is theoretically trapped with everyone else in the upper area right now. I still can't take my mind off Shaka though. He just seems very in control of the situation, which is allegedly spiraling out of control. And you've got mask theory and everything to add on top of that, he's just a naturally suspicious dude guy. People have also started posing the idea that Vegapunk's detached brain might be taking on an entity of its own. So in essence, there is no traitor and it's more like a classic AI takeover situation. It's such a fascinating scenario though. People called me paranoid when I made that video about an Egghead Island traitor, but there is definitely someone working against us in the shadows here. Also, is it just me, or has this arc really amped up the betrayals? Stussy betrays the world government betrays Vegapunk, and now we're in a situation where Vegapunk is potentially also betraying Vegapunk. And among all of this is a really touching story involving Bonnie and Kuma, which we got a really tiny depressing appetizer of in this chapter. Oda is edging this story so hard right now. Every time it seems like we're about to dive in, Oda is just like, no, not yet. But this is not the first time we've seen Kuma as a child. That comes to us courtesy of this image, which looks like it takes place around the same time period, with our young bear lad looking like he's living quite the poor village lifestyle. Also, fun fact, he has human ears as a child, but he doesn't have human ears as an adult. They've like migrated up here and they've become quite bear-like. But we see two groups of people in this Kuma flashback, both absolutely abhorrent people. There's what looks like his fellow villagers, or I suppose people that just live in his general vicinity, but we also have a glimpse of the world nobles. And the heavy implication is that Kuma was tortured by them, perhaps perhaps as a slave, but also not necessarily. It's hard to tell exactly what they're doing. He could also be a test subject or something. But this brief flashback really recontextualizes the Red Line climb, because as a child, Kuma fled Ambereddraws and he was scared, terrified to go back. But now, as a much bigger Kuma, it looks like his final life's act is going back to Ambereddraws. And I imagine we'll discover the reason why in the full flashback, but this climb is probably going to end up hitting us pretty hard. But the real big news is that my favorite bird, other than Southbird, you're always my favorite, but another bird is back and he has some familiar faces with him. Is it bad that I'm more excited to see Walpole than I am Vivi? I feel like a lot of people don't like Walpole. I love Walpole. But I'm a huge fan of minor and mostly comical One Piece antagonists in general, and so I love that Walpole is still getting involved. It's not even a random appearance either. It's not like Oda spun the wheel and decided, let's throw in Walpole. Because Walpole was the one who leaked information to Morgans. But also pairing him with Vivi is brilliant, because the two of them already have a pretty deep series history. Walpole of course met Vivi at a prior reverie, and by met I mean he struck her in the face, and then of course Vivi was present on drum when Walpole was beaten, and now this whole thing has come full circle with them meeting at another reverie. So the stories of Walpole and Vivi are pretty bizarrely linked, and child abuse aside, it's really fun to see them together. I will say that Vivi seems oddly casual for someone whose father was just murdered. She's less sad and more mildly annoyed at circumstances than anything, and it did make me wonder if Cobra could be alive, and this whole assassination thing is a clever ruse by someone. Then again, sometimes Oda isn't really great with character feelings. People in the One Piece world generally go one of two ways. They either never get over a character death for their entire lives, they carry it with them, or they get over a character death almost immediately. Like say Kiku during Wano, who was so unaffected by her brother's death that we never even saw her reaction to it, nor did she go to bury Izo with everyone else, instead favoring some bath time with the ladies. Now as for who leaked this information to Morgans, I think it's fairly safe to say that it was Stussy. Those two have a working relationship which we saw at play during Whole Cake Island, and if Stussy was really betraying the world government, then informing Morgans about all of their not so great actions would be a great way to swing public opinion against them, which Morgans knows, and hence why he isn't going to do it. Because Vegapunk is a very popular man, so to sensationalize this and create the best entertainment, we need to find a villain to blame. Someone who the world can get upset at but not, start a revolution at. For years I've said that Big News Morgans is the most powerful character in One Piece simply due to his influence, and we are about to see that influence at work. Morgans not only knows, but in this case, holds a lot of very important pieces. He's almost like Oda himself. He is controlling the flow of information in order to tell the most exciting story possible, and his actions here are going to have extraordinary ripple effects throughout the world, which we will be examining in the next video.